In this lesson, we will learn how to ghost animation in Maya. Ghosting is a great way to check our timing and spacing. We could also use it to check for arcs, but I'll show you another tool that might be best to check for the trajectory of an animated object. Now, before we get to that, let's go ahead and take a look at our character in this scene. So this mesh is skinned. It's being driven by joints. What that means is that if we were to try to ghost this mesh, let's say we grab the pants here, we head over to Animate, Ghost Selected, you'll see that it's trying to ghost this object. We have this visual printout of the form of the selected mesh, but you'll see that we're not actually going to see a ghost because this mesh is not transforming. In order to see the ghost, the object needs to be animated and it needs to be transformed. So right now, take a look at its values. The rotation is 0, the translation is 0, and the scale is set to 1. What's driving this mesh is a skin cluster. It's the joints that are driving the pants here. Now watch this, just to add more clarity to this. If I were to go to the skin cluster here, with that selected, I'll go to the envelope, and I'll set this value to 0. Take a look. Again, the pants aren't actually moving. Alright, so I just wanted to make that clear. Let's go ahead and set the envelope back to 1 so that we can go ahead and start to have the pants follow again, because it looked kind of weird with them staying put. So let's say we do this. With the pants selected, we'll go ahead and unghost, so we can remove that printout above the mesh. We'll head over to unghost selected. Take a look. We're having an issue. That's simply because we have the skin cluster selected as well. So watch this. If we were to just go ahead and deselect, grab the pants again, and go back to Animate and choose Unghost Selected, that printout is gone. Alright, sweet. Let's go ahead and select something that will actually ghost. We'll go to Show, NURBS Curves, and we'll now go ahead and grab the Center of Gravity control. Now take a look. If we go to Animate, Ghost Selected Options, you'll see that by default, if we were to take a look at the default settings, again, we can do that by going to Edit, Reset Settings. By default, this looks at our global preferences, and we've taken a look at these preferences already earlier on in the course. If I were to close out the options, we can go to Preferences, Display Animation, and here are those preferences. So by default, we'll see 3 ghosts before our current frame, 3 ghosts after our current frame, and with a step value of 1, meaning every frame in this range. So if we were to test this out, we can go back to Animate and choose Ghost Selected, and that's exactly what we see. Awesome. Now what we also see is that the hierarchy of the selected object has been ghosted as well. It can get quite distracting if that happens. So how do we remove this? Well, the first thing we want to do is remove the ghost. So let's make sure we select our center of gravity and head over to Animate, Unghost Selected, Options. I'll reset the settings. You'll see that by default hierarchy is off. Let's make sure it's on, and we'll now choose Unghost, and we're brought back to where we were before. Another option we have is to go to the Animate menu and choose Unghost All. Now here, let's say we go back to Ghost Selected, we'll go to our option box, and let's turn off hierarchy. So it's only going to ghost the selected object. Let's now choose Ghost, and there we have it. Only the center of gravity has been ghosted. Awesome. Let's go ahead and take a look at some other settings. So what I'll now do is just go ahead and head over to Animate and choose Unghost Selected. And now we'll head back to Ghost Selected to go to the options. So instead of using the global preferences, we can go ahead and switch this to, let's say, custom frame steps. And now we see something very similar to what we saw in our preferences, in that we can go ahead and change our frame before count, frame after, and our step size. So let's go ahead and set our before count to 10. Our after count we'll set to about 2, and we'll leave the step size at 1. Take a look. We could also choose to ghost certain objects or to not ghost certain objects. So if you don't want to ghost, let's say, joints, you can uncheck this option. If you don't want to ghost locators, you can uncheck this. All right, sweet. So I'll now go ahead and choose Ghost and take a look. All right, so here we see exactly what we have in our ghost preferences. So we're viewing 10 frames before our current frame. So these would be the moments that come before frame 11. So that's 10, 9, 8, and so on. And then we're seeing only 2 frames after our current time. So if we're on 11, that would be 12 and 13. And again, we see a step size of 1, meaning every frame within this range. All right, sweet. So we can go ahead and take a look at this. I'll minimize the options. I'll start the animation back, and we'll hit play. So you can see why this would be a great tool to check for arcs, because we can see this arcing pattern here in our ghost. But more importantly, we're able to see timing and spacing. So as our control object spreads apart, as it gets further and further away in the ghost, that means that the character is moving faster. But you'll notice that when it starts to bunch up a bit, that means the character is moving slower. So that's basically how we can read this. So again, that's a look at ghosting. It's just a great way to check timing and spacing. Now, I'd like to show you a really neat tool in Maya that allows us to check for arcs. Let's go ahead and take a look at that in the next lesson.